A princess's fall. The crystalline spires of the Grand Assembly pierce the violet skies of Celestia Prime, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 moons. Within the towering structure, Princess Lyra stood before the High Council, her silver-scaled skin shimmering under the bioluminescent lights. Unlike the ornate robes worn by the other council members, she had chosen simple attire, a statement that didn't go unnoticed. Members of the High Council, Lyra's voice carried across the chamber. I stand before you with evidence of corruption that reaches the highest levels of our government. The resource allocation to the outer colonies. Silence. High Commander Vex's thunderous voice cut through the air. His crimson eyes blazed with fury as he rose from his elevated seat. You dare bring these baseless accusations to this sacred chamber? Lyra didn't flinch. Instead, she projected a hologram from her wrist device, displaying countless documents and transmission logs. These records show systematic theft of medical supplies meant for the colony worlds. Millions suffer while a select few grow wealthy. Chaos erupted in the chamber. Council members shouted over each other, some demanding to see the evidence, others calling for Lyra's immediate arrest. But Lyra had anticipated this reaction. 3 years of careful planning had led to this moment. Guards, Vex roared, seize the traitor. As armored figures rushed forward, Lyra pressed a hidden button on her belt. The hologram exploded in a brilliant flash of light, temporarily blinding everyone in the chamber. In the confusion, she activated her phase shift device, experimental technology stolen from the very corrupt officials she'd exposed. The guard's energy weapons passed harmlessly through her partially phased form as she sprinted toward the chamber's crystalline windows. Without hesitation, she threw herself through the transparent barrier, thousands of feet above the capital city. As she fell, Lyra's secondary plan initiated. Her ceremonial cloak transformed, nanomaterials restructuring themselves into a wingsuit. She glided through the artificial canyons of the city, warning sirens blaring behind her. Security vessels were already launching in pursuit. Her destination lay ahead, the small personal shuttle she'd prepared for this exact scenario. As she approached the hidden landing pad, a searing pain struck her left side. One of the security vessels had managed a glancing hit. Stumbling into her shuttle's cockpit, Lyra quickly initiated the launch sequence. The vessel's AI came to life. Warning: pilot injury detected. Recommended course of action: seek medical attention. Override. Lyra commanded through gritted teeth. Execute emergency departure pattern Delta. The shuttle shot into the atmosphere, pursued by a dozen security craft. But Lyra had chosen this vessel for its unique capabilities. As they reached the edge of space, she activated its experimental quantum drive, another piece of technology she'd borrowed during her investigation. Executing random quantum jump, the AI announced. Destination unknown. Survival probability, 68.4%. Space twisted around the small vessel. Lyra's last glimpse of her homeworld vanished in a flash of impossible colors. Pain and nausea overwhelmed her as the ship tore through reality itself. When she regained consciousness, a blue-green planet filled the view screen. Location identified, the AI reported. Designation: Earth. Local civilization: pre-FTL. Warning: critical system damage. Controlled landing unlikely. Lyra laughed despite the pain in her side. Of all the planets in all the galaxies, she'd ended up at one of the few worlds still isolated from galactic society. Perhaps that was for the best. No extradition treaties, no surveillance networks, no way for Vex's agents to track her. The shuttle broke through Earth's atmosphere in a ball of fire. Lyra fought with the failing controls, trying to aim for an uninhabited area. The ground rushed up to meet her as primary systems failed one by one. The impact was devastating. When Lyra dragged herself from the wreckage, she could barely stand. Her phase shift device was damaged, leaving her fully visible to any locals who might investigate the crash. She needed to find shelter, medical attention, and a way to contact her allies in the resistance. In the distance, she saw the lights of a small human settlement. Her universal translator was still functioning, at least. With no better options, she began limping towards civilization, clutching her injured side. The local inhabitants might be primitive by galactic standards, but they were her only hope for survival. As she walked, Lyra reflected on the irony of her situation. She, a princess of the most advanced civilization in the known galaxy, would have to beg primitives for help. But she'd sacrificed her privilege once already to fight corruption. Perhaps it was time to learn humility as well. The first rays of Earth's sun were breaking over the horizon as Lyra reached the outskirts of the settlement. Her strength was failing, her vision growing dark. The last thing she saw was a human male rushing toward her as she collapsed. "Hey, are you okay?" The human's voice seemed distant. "Don't worry, I'll help you." Lyra managed a weak smile before losing consciousness. She'd risked everything to expose the truth, and now her fate rested in the hands of a species that hadn't even reached the stars. Sometimes, the universe had a strange sense of humor. A new world's ways. Mike Chen never expected his ordinary life to change the day he found an injured alien in his backyard. As a struggling freelance programmer living in a small house on the outskirts of Seattle, his biggest concerns usually involved meeting client deadlines and paying bills. Now, he was helping a silver-skinned woman with bioluminescent markings learn how to use a microwave. "No, Lyra, you can't put metal in there," Mike explained patiently, removing the aluminum-wrapped leftovers. "And please stop trying to communicate with the appliances. They're not sentient." Lyra looked genuinely disappointed. "On my world, even simple devices have basic artificial intelligence. Your technology is fascinating in its simplicity." She studied the microwave with the intensity of a scientist examining a new species. It had been 2 weeks since Mike found her unconscious in his yard. After the initial shock of realizing she was an alien, and a princess at that, he'd agreed to help her. His spare room became her sanctuary, and his home her crash course in human life. "Your currency system is particularly primitive," Lyra observed, watching Mike count out bills to pay for the pizza delivery. "Physical representations of value. How do you prevent quantum counterfeiting?" Mike couldn't help but laugh. "Regular counterfeiting is problem enough, trust me. Speaking of money, we need to figure out a way for you to earn some. I can't keep paying for everything." Lyra straightened, her silver scales shimming in the lamplight. "Yes, I must contribute. Perhaps I could optimize your planetary defense systems, or introduce zero-point energy technology. How about we start with something that won't get us arrested by the government?" Mike suggested. "You need a job that won't draw attention. Something normal." That's how Lyra, former princess of an advanced galactic civilization, ended up working at the local coffee shop. Mike had helped create a backstory. She was a foreign exchange student named Lisa, explaining any cultural confusion. Her unusual appearance was attributed to a rare genetic condition, a story most people accepted with surprising ease. Her first day was memorable, to say the least. "Welcome to Star Beans. How may I assist in your caffeine acquisition process?" Lyra greeted her first customer, trying to mimic the casual speech patterns Mike had taught her. The sleepy businessman barely looked up from his phone. Large coffee, black. Ah, the traditional Earth stimulant in its purest form. A bold choice, though the lack of supplementary nutrients seems inefficient. "Shall I add a protein supplement to optimize your biological functions?" Mike, who had taken the day off to supervise, quickly intervened. "She means, would you like anything else with that?" Despite the rocky start, Lyra proved to be a quick learner. Her analytical mind helped her memorize complex drink orders, and her genuine fascination with human customs endeared her to regular customers. They found her formal speech and intense interest in their primitive beverages charming, if a bit eccentric. But it wasn't all coffee and cultural misunderstandings. Late at night, Lyra would work on repairing her damaged communication device, hoping to contact the resistance movement she'd left behind. Mike often found her surrounded by dismantled Earth electronics she'd borrowed in her attempts to boost the signal. "Your planet's electromagnetic spectrum is so congested," she complained one evening. "How do you function with such limited bandwidth?" "The same way we function without quantum drives and AI toasters," Mike replied, helping her untangle a mess of wires. "We make do with what we have." As weeks turned into months, Lyra's understanding of human life grew, along with her appreciation for it. She discovered the joy of streaming services, fascinating narratives, though your special effects are amusingly inaccurate, the comfort of sweatpants, superior to ceremonial robes in every way, and the simple pleasure of sharing takeout food with a friend. Mike, too, found his worldview expanding. Lyra's stories of distant worlds and advanced civilizations made his coding work seem simultaneously trivial and vital. Humans might be technologically behind, but they were on their way to the stars. One rainy evening, as they sat watching a sci-fi movie that Lyra kept critiquing for its scientific inaccuracies, she grew quiet. "What's wrong?" Mike asked, noticing her subdued bioluminescence. He'd learned to read her moods through the patterns of light under her skin. "I've been thinking," she said slowly. "All my life, I was taught that less advanced species were primitive, that they needed our guidance and control. But living here, seeing how humans face their limitations with creativity and determination, perhaps we were wrong. There's a beauty in finding simple solutions to complex problems." Mike smiled. "Like using a coffee shop job to hide an alien princess." "Precisely." Lyra's scales flickered with amusement. "Though I still maintain that your espresso machine would function 47% more efficiently with a quantum processor." Their laughter was interrupted by a deep rumble that shook the house. At first, Mike thought it was thunder, until he saw Lyra's expression of horror. "They found me," she whispered, her bioluminescence dimming to almost nothing. "The High Council's hunters. We need tow." The windows exploded inward as bright searchlights flooded the room. A voice boomed from above, speaking in both Lyra's language and English. "Atten primitive D-Doi Earthling. Surrender, the traitor princess immediately, or face planetary science." Mike looked at Lyra, then at the massive ships hovering outside his broken windows. "I'm guessing this is going to be a bit more complicated than explaining the microwave, isn't it?" Crisis point. The massive Imperial ships cast an eerie purple glow over Seattle's skyline as Mike's ancient Toyota Corolla sped through the panicked streets. Lyra sat in the passenger seat, her silver scales pulsing with anxiety as she monitored a small device she'd cobbled together from old phone parts. 3 pursuit crafts, closing fast, she reported. Their energy signatures suggest they're equipped with non-lethal containment weapons. "Non-lethal sounds good," Mike said, swerving to avoid an abandoned delivery truck. "Though I'm guessing their definition of non-lethal might differ from ours. The containment fields merely compress organic matter into a quantum storage state," Lyra explained. "Most subjects survive the process, usually." "Right, definitely keeping the car moving then." They'd barely escaped Mike's house before the Imperial forces had reduced it to atoms. Now they were racing through the city, trying to stay ahead of their pursuers while formulating a plan. The streets were chaos, some people fleeing in terror, others standing around filming the alien ships with their phones. "I'm sorry, Mike," Lyra said softly. "I never meant to bring this conflict to your world, to endanger you." "Hey, what are friends for if not helping each other escape from corrupt space empires?" Mike managed a grin despite the gravity of the situation. "Besides, my lease was almost up anyway." A blast of energy scorched the road beside them, sending the car fishtailing. Mike wrestled with the steering wheel as Lyra's device began beeping urgently. "They're charging their primary weapons," she warned. "We need to find cover, somewhere with heavy electromagnetic interference to disrupt their targeting systems." Mike's eyes lit up. "I know just the place." He yanked the wheel hard, sending them down a side street. There's an old steel mill on the outskirts. It's been abandoned for years, but all the metal and old equipment should mess with their sensors, right? Brilliant. Lyra's scales flickered with excitement. The residual magnetic fields from the industrial equipment could provide excellent cover. Though, she hesitated, we'll be trapped there. Sometimes you have to think inside the box, Mike said cryptically, earning a confused look from Lyra. Trust me, I have a plan. Sort of. They reached the steel mill just as the pursuit crafts were closing in. Mike crashed through the rusted gates, driving deep into the massive complex. The building's steel skeleton groaned in the wind as they abandoned the car and ran inside. This way. Mike led them through a maze of old machinery and conveyor belts. Behind them, they could hear the Imperial forces landing, their heavy boots echoing on metal catwalks. Surrender, Princess Lyra, an amplified voice boomed. Your rebellion has failed. The High Council's authority is absolute. That would be Commander Vex, Lyra whispered as they crouched behind an old smelting furnace. He's been hunting me across 3 galaxies. Charming fellow, Mike muttered, peering around the corner. Okay, time for some good old-fashioned human ingenuity. See that control room up there? Lyra nodded, noting the elevated office overlooking the factory floor. The whole plant runs on an ancient analog system, Mike explained. No fancy quantum computers or AI, just basic electricity and mechanical switches. Think you can give it some juice with that repair kit of yours? Understanding dawned in Lyra's luminescent eyes. The power cells from my emergency beacon. Yes, but Mike, even if we restore power, what good will primitive Earth machinery do against Imperial technology? Mike's grin turned mischievous. You'd be surprised what primitive humans can do with the right tools. Ready to learn another Earth lesson. They made their way to the control room as Imperial forces spread through the complex. Lyra worked quickly, connecting her advanced power cells to the factory's old electrical system while Mike studied the ancient control panel. Remember what you said about the beauty of simple solutions? He asked, fingers hovering over the switches. Watch this. He threw the master lever. The entire factory roared to life, conveyor belts grinding, furnaces igniting, massive electromagnets humming with power. The sudden surge of electromagnetic energy played havoc with the Imperial Force's sophisticated equipment. My sensors are offline, one soldier shouted. Energy weapons malfunctioning, called another. Commander Vex's furious voice cut through the chaos. Switch to manual targeting. Find them. But Mike wasn't done. He activated the factory's material handling systems, sending tons of metal scraps cascading through the air. The powerful electromagnets caught the debris, creating a swirling vortex of steel that disrupted both visibility and movement. Impossible. Vex raged. These primitives can't possibly. His words were cut off as a massive steel beam, guided by an electromagnet, swept his squad off their feet. More Imperial forces found themselves bombarded by precisely aimed streams of metal shrapnel, their advanced armor useless against the sheer physical impact. This is amazing, Lyra exclaimed, her scales blazing with joy as she watched the chaos below. You're using simple magnetic forces to defeat the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. Sometimes the old ways work best, Mike said, working the controls like a conductor directing an orchestra of destruction. Though I have to admit, your power cells help. We make a good team. The remaining Imperial forces began retreating, their sophisticated weapons and tactics useless in the face of basic physics and human creativity. But as they watched the soldiers flee, Lyra's expression turned serious. They'll be back, she said, with bigger ships and better weapons. We've won this battle, but... She was interrupted by a new sound, a deep, resonant hum that made the entire building vibrate. Through the factory's broken windows, they could see new ships appearing in the sky. But these were different, sleeker, organic-looking vessels that moved with liquid grace. Lyra's scales lit up with pure joy. The Resistance. They got my message. Your message, but your communicator was destroyed. Not destroyed, Lara smiled. Just modified. When we powered up the factory, all that electromagnetic energy acted as a carrier wave for my distress signal. Once again, human ingenuity provided the perfect solution. Mike watched in awe as the resistance ships engaged the Imperial forces, driving them back with superior tactics and technology. So, does this mean it's over? No, Lara took his hand, her scales pulsing with warm colors. This means it's just beginning. The real revolution starts now, and I think Earth has a lot to teach the galaxy about innovation and resourcefulness. Great, Mike sighed, looking at the destruction around them. But maybe we could start with something smaller, like explaining to my insurance company why my house is now a smoking crater. Above them, the battle for Earth's skies continued, marking the beginning of a new chapter in human history, one where primitive ingenuity would help reshape the fate of an entire galaxy. When stars align, the days following the battle at the steel mill transformed Seattle into ground zero for humanity's first official contact with alien civilization. The resistance ships hovered peacefully above the city, their organic-looking hulls shimmering with iridescent lights that had quickly become a tourist attraction. Meanwhile, in a hastily established command center in an abandoned warehouse, Lyra and Mike found themselves at the center of an interstellar diplomatic crisis. You want to make Earth the headquarters of your galactic revolution? Mike asked incredulously, watching Lyra coordinate with resistance leaders via holographic displays. Aren't we a bit underdeveloped for that? Lyra's scales flickered with amusement as she adjusted her makeshift crown of Earth electronics, a symbol of her new leadership role. That's exactly why it's perfect. The High Council would never expect us to operate from a pre-FTL world. Besides, she added softly, Earth has already taught me more about innovation and adaptation than centuries of imperial education. The warehouse had become a fascinating blend of human and alien technology. Resistance engineers marveled at Earth's primitive solutions, while human scientists gaped at advanced alien tech. In one corner, a quantum computer interfaced with a laptop running Windows, while in another, aliens learned the art of duct tape repairs. Commander Lyra, a young resistance fighter, burst in, their crystalline skin pulsing with urgency. We're detecting multiple Imperial signatures entering the solar system, much larger than before. Mike watched the holographic display show dozens of massive ships approaching Earth. Please tell me those aren't what I think they are. The Imperial Armada, Lyra confirmed grimly. They're done playing games. Vex must have convinced the High Council to launch a full invasion. The next few hours were a blur of preparation. While resistance ships moved to defensive positions, Lyra and Mike worked on a desperate plan. They couldn't match the Imperial forces in firepower, but maybe they didn't have to. Your internet, Lyra mused, studying a network diagram. It's chaotic, decentralized, almost organic in how it spreads information. Mike nodded, beginning to understand. And nearly impossible to shut down completely because there's no single point of control. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Their plan came together quickly. While the resistance fleet prepared for battle, Mike coordinated with tech companies and hackers worldwide. Lyra's engineers worked to interface alien quantum transmitters with Earth's digital infrastructure. The Imperial Armada arrived at dawn, their massive ships darkening the sky over every major city on Earth. Commander Vex's voice thundered across global communications. Primitive world, you harbored traitors to the Empire. Surrender Princess Lyra and the resistance forces, or we will reduce your cities to ash. Instead of panic, his threat was met with an unexpected response: laughter. Millions of phones, computers, and screens worldwide simultaneously activated, broadcasting a compilation of Earth's greatest moments of defiance and innovation. From the Wright brothers to the moon landing, from the first computers to the latest smartphones, humanity's journey of innovation played across the globe. What is this? Vex demanded. Some primitive attempt at psychological warfare. No, Lyra's voice replied, broadcasting through every device on Earth and every Imperial ship's computer. This is a demonstration. That's when Mike's program activated. The decentralized nature of Earth's internet, combined with alien quantum processors, created something entirely new. A digital virus that didn't just infect systems, it evolved. Imperial ships found their quantum computers overwhelmed by millions of years of digital evolution compressed into microseconds. Impossible. Vex raged as his fleet's systems began failing. These primitives can't possibly understand quantum computing. We don't have to. Mike's voice joined Lyra's on the broadcast. We just have to create something that could learn it faster than you could stop it. Across the Armada, ships lost power as their quantum computers crashed, overwhelmed by the hybrid human-alien virus. Emergency systems engaged, forcing them to retreat or risk complete shutdown. Within hours, the mighty Imperial Armada had been driven back by what amounted to a clever hack. In the aftermath, as resistant ships helped guide the powerless Imperial vessels safely away from Earth's orbit, Lyra found Mike on the warehouse roof, watching the sunset. "You know," she said, settling beside him, "when I first crashed here, I thought I was being punished by fate. Stranded on a primitive world, forced to hide among less advanced beings." Her scales shifted to warm, embarrassed colors. "I've never been so wrong." Mike smiled. "We may not have quantum computers or FTL drives, but humans are pretty good at thinking outside the box. Sometimes literally," he added, gesturing to the warehouse full of hybrid technology below. "That's why I've made a decision," Lyra said, her scales now pulsing with determination. "The Resistance wants me to lead them in reforming the Empire, to create a more equal galaxy where advancement isn't measured by technology alone." "Sounds like a big job. When do you leave?" "That's just it." Lyra turned to face him, her expression serious. "I'm not leaving. I'm proposing that Earth become the center of a new kind of galactic civilization, one that values innovation and creativity over raw technological advancement, where different species learn from each other instead of conquering or controlling." Mike blinked in surprise, and the Resistance leaders agreed to this. After today's demonstration, they're convinced. Humanity just proved that determination and creative thinking can overcome even the most advanced technology. That's exactly the kind of philosophy we need to reform the Empire. As if to emphasize her point, a group of alien engineers below began cheering as they successfully repaired a quantum drive using nothing but Earth materials and techniques they'd learned from human mechanics. Besides, Lyra added, her scales shifting to a soft, warm glow, "I found something here worth staying for, something no advanced civilization could offer." "Oh." Mike raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" "A friend who saw past my title and technology, who taught me that true advancement comes from here." She touched her chest, "not from machines." The sun set on a changed Earth, where humans and aliens worked together in a warehouse-turned-laboratory, combining the best of both worlds. Above them, stars twinkled with new possibility, no longer distant, unreachable points of light, but gateways to a future where humanity's greatest strength turned out to be its supposed primitive nature. "So," Mike said finally, "does this mean you're keeping your job at the coffee shop? Because I think intergalactic revolutionary leader looks great on a resume." Lyra's laughter echoed across the roof, her scales creating a light show that rivaled the sunset. The revolution had only just begun, but its foundation was built on something stronger than any technology, the unbreakable bond between two beings from different worlds who saw past their differences to find something revolutionary. Friendship, the bridge between stars. 6 months after Earth's successful defense against the Imperial Armada, the old Starbeans coffee shop had undergone a remarkable transformation. Now called Starbridge Cafe, it served as both a regular coffee shop and an unofficial interstellar cultural exchange center. Mike watched with amusement as Lyra, still wearing her barista apron over her royal attire, explained the concept of a cappuccino to a group of crystalline beings from the Andromeda Galaxy. The foam represents the delicate balance between liquid and air, she lectured, her scales shimmering with enthusiasm. Much like the balance we now seek between advanced technology and innovative simplicity. And here I thought it was just steamed milk and coffee, Mike quipped from behind the register, earning chuckles from the human customers who become used to their unusual clientele. The cafe had become a symbol of Earth's unique position in the new galactic order. Humans and aliens sat side by side, sharing drinks and ideas. Engineers from advanced civilizations debated with local mechanics about the best way to repair quantum drives using Earth materials. Artists from distant worlds studied human music and film, fascinated by Earth's creative expressions. Mike, Lyra called out excitedly, hurrying over to his counter. The Council of Free Worlds just approved our proposal. Earth is officially designated as the Galactic Center for Innovation and Cultural Exchange. Great, Mike grinned. Does this mean we can finally get a better espresso machine? One that doesn't need to be recalibrated every time a quantum fluctuation passes by. Before Lyra could respond, their attention was drawn to a commotion outside. Through the cafe's windows, they could see a familiar figure approaching, Commander Vex, now stripped of his Imperial rank, flanked by resistance guards. Are you sure about this? Mike asked quietly as Vex entered the cafe. The former Imperial commander looked diminished without his ceremonial armor, wearing simple civilian clothes. Lyra's scales shifted to a determined blue. Everyone deserves a chance to learn and change. That's what Earth taught me. Vex approached their counter, his once proud bearing now hesitant. Princess, Leader Lyra, he corrected himself. I've come to formally request asylum, and he added with visible difficulty, to learn. Learn what? Mike asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. How to see beyond technology and power, Vex replied. How to make coffee. The request was so unexpected that Mike couldn't help but laugh. Well, you're in luck. We're actually hiring. Though I should warn you, our training program is pretty intense. Over the next few weeks, the sight of a former Imperial commander learning to operate an espresso machine became just another normal part of life at Starbridge Cafe. Vex proved to be a surprisingly dedicated student, applying the same precision he once used in military strategy to crafting perfect lats. I don't understand, he confessed to Lyra one quiet afternoon. We had machines that could synthesize any beverage instantly, yet humans line up every day for manually prepared drinks. Why? Lyra smiled, her scales glowing warmly. Because it's not just about the drink, Vex. It's about the experience, the human touch, the small imperfections that make each cup unique. Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the best one. The cafe also became a hub for technological innovation, but not in the way anyone expected. In one corner, a group of alien scientists worked with human software developers to create apps that could translate alien art forms into human comprehensible experiences. At another table, a human chef collaborated with xenobiologists to develop recipes that could be enjoyed by multiple species. One day, as Mike was closing up the shop, he found Lyra sitting at their favorite table, surrounded by holographic displays showing various projects around Earth. Look at this, she said excitedly, pointing to images of new hybrid technologies being developed worldwide. Humans are combining our quantum computing with their neural networks to create entirely new forms of AI. And here, she swiped to another image. They're adapting their internal combustion engines to work with our zero-point energy crystals. Not bad for a bunch of primitives, huh? Mike sat down beside her, sliding over her favorite drink, a caramel macchiato with a splash of something that made it glow slightly. That's just it. Lyra's scales pulsed with intense colors as she spoke. I finally understand what makes humans special. You don't just adopt new technology, you transform it, combine it, find uses no one else imagined. Every solution doesn't have to be the most advanced, it just has to work. Their conversation was interrupted by the cafe's door chiming. A young human girl walked in with what appeared to be a science project, a working model of a solar system made from coffee cups, stirrers, and what looked suspiciously like parts from an alien quantum drive. "Miss Lyra," the girl called out, "can you help me explain to my teacher why I added these glowing parts to my project? She doesn't believe me when I say they're real alien technology." Mike watched as Lyra, a former princess who once commanded fleets of starships, happily sat down to help a child with her homework. In that moment, he realized just how far they'd come. "You know," he said later, as they watched the sunset from their usual spot on the roof, "when you first crashed in my backyard and offered to be my servant, I thought you were crazy." "And now?" Lyra asked, her scales twinkling with amusement. "Now I think we're all serving something bigger. A future where it doesn't matter if you're human or alien, advanced or primitive. Where the only thing that matters is what we can learn from each other." Below them, the cafe buzzed with activity as humans and aliens mingled, shared stories, and planned futures together. A former Imperial commander taught a new barista the perfect milk steaming technique. A group of alien tourists took selfies with their exotic Earth beverages. And in the sky above, stars that once seemed impossibly distant now felt like neighbors just waiting to be visited, not by conquerors or advanced civilizations, but by curious humans eager to share a cup of coffee and exchange ideas across the cosmic bridge they were building, one small innovation at a time. A coffee revolution. 1 year after the founding of Starbridge Cafe, the small coffee shop had spawned a galactic phenomenon. What started as a humble meeting point between humans and aliens had evolved into a franchise spanning multiple star systems. Mike found himself standing in the newest location, on Mars. Through the cafe's dome windows, the red Martian landscape stretched endlessly, occasionally broken by the gleaming spires of humanity's first extraterrestrial colony. Inside, the familiar aroma of coffee mingled with the exotic scents of alien beverages. "I still can't believe we went from one Earth coffee shop to having locations across a solar system," Mike mused, watching as a Martian colonist and a crystalline being from Andromeda argued good-naturedly about the best way to modify an espresso machine for low-gravity operation. Lyra, her scales shimmering with pride, adjusted the anti-gravity coffee grinder. "It's not just about the coffee anymore, Mike. Each Starbridge location is a nexus of innovation. Look there." She pointed to a corner where a group of human engineers were collaborating with alien scientists. They were working on what looked like an ordinary coffee cup, but it was actually a revolutionary piece of technology, a self-heating container that used modified quantum mechanics to maintain perfect drinking temperature without external power. "And to think," Lyra continued, "it all started because you gave shelter to a desperate alien princess." Their reminiscence was interrupted by a familiar face. Vex, the former Imperial commander, now Starbridge's head of staff training. His transformation had been remarkable. The once rigid military leader now wore a barista apron with pride, and his stern demeanor had softened into something approaching wisdom. "Leader Lyra, Mike," he greeted them, balancing a tray of experimental beverages. "The new hybrid drinks are ready for testing. We've successfully combined Earth coffee with Centaurian energy crystals. The result is interesting." The drink in question glowed softly and seemed to hover slightly above its cup. Mike took a cautious sip and felt an immediate surge of energy, followed by what seemed like enhanced mental clarity. "Okay, that's definitely going on the secret menu," he declared, "though we might need to add a warning label." Their success hadn't gone unnoticed by the wider galaxy. The High Council, once the epitome of technological elitism, had been reformed into the intergalactic exchange of ideas. Their latest meeting was scheduled to take place right here in the Mars branch of Starbridge. As delegates from across the galaxy filed in, Mike couldn't help but marvel at the scene. Beings of all forms, crystalline, energy-based, biological, and some that defied description, sat together at coffee tables, sharing drinks and ideas. The formal meeting room had been deliberately designed to look like a cozy cafe, complete with comfortable seating and the constant hum of coffee machines. The galaxy's most important diplomatic decisions are now made over coffee, Mike whispered to Lyra. I'm not sure whether to be proud or terrified. Both is good, Lyra replied with a grin, her scales flickering with amusement. The meeting began, but it was unlike any diplomatic gathering in galactic history. Instead of formal speeches and power plays, representatives from different worlds shared stories of collaboration and innovation. A human teenager demonstrated how she'd adapted alien quantum technology to create a new kind of clean energy generator. An alien scientist explained how Earth's internet had inspired a revolutionary new approach to interstellar communication. But the most significant moment came when a group of young humans and aliens together presented their project, a new type of starship engine that combined Earth's primitive internal combustion principles with advanced quantum technology. It was cheaper, more efficient, and more reliable than anything that had come before. This is what we fought for, Lyra said softly, watching the presentation. Not to prove one world's superiority over another, but to show how much more we can achieve together. As the meeting concluded, Mike found himself on the observation deck, looking out at Mars' twin moons. Lyra joined him, carrying 2 cups of their special cosmic blend coffee. Sometimes I wonder, she said, what would have happened if I'd crashed anywhere else on Earth? What if someone else had found me? Mike took a sip of his coffee, considering. I think it would have worked out anyway. That's the thing about humans. We're pretty good at adapting to weird situations, though maybe not every coffee shop would have become an intergalactic franchise. True, Lyra laughed, her scales creating a light show that reflected off the dome's surface. But I'm glad it was your backyard I crashed in. Below them, the cafe buzzed with activity. A group of alien tourists was learning about the human tradition of latte art. An elderly human was teaching young aliens about Earth's history through coffee cultivation. Vex was patiently explaining to a new hire, a being made entirely of plasma, why they couldn't simply phase through the walls to deliver orders faster. You know what's really amazing? Mike said, watching the scene. None of this feels strange anymore. Aliens, quantum coffee, diplomatic meetings on Mars. It's just another day at the office. That's humanity's greatest strength, Lyra replied. You don't just accept the impossible, you make it ordinary. You take the extraordinary and make it part of everyday life. As if to prove her point, a small child ran past them, chasing what appeared to be a quantum-enhanced bubble maker, while her parents, one human, one crystalline being, watched fondly. The sun was setting on Mars, casting long shadows across the red landscape. Inside Starbridge, humans and aliens continued their daily dance of cultural exchange, 1 cup of coffee at a time. The cafe that started as a hiding place for a refugee princess had become something more, a bridge between worlds, a catalyst for innovation, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest revolutions start with the simplest things. Mike raised his cup in a toast to crashing in the right backyard. Lyra's scales glowed warmly as she clinked her cup against his, to finding home in unexpected places. Around them, the legacy of their unlikely partnership continued to grow, spreading across the stars 1 coffee shop at a time. And somewhere, in every Starbridge cafe across the galaxy, someone was learning that the best way to understand another species wasn't through advanced technology or diplomatic protocols, but through the simple act of sharing a drink and a conversation. The revolution they'd started hadn't ended with the fall of the Empire. It was just beginning, powered by coffee, creativity, and the endless capacity of all species to surprise each other. When stars feel like home. 5 years after the first Starbridge Cafe opened its doors, Mike found himself standing on an observation deck of the newly completed Earth space elevator, looking down at his home planet. The massive structure, a testament to human-alien collaboration, stretched like a silver thread from Earth to the stars. Still gets me every time, he said, as Lyra joined him at the window. Her scales sparkled with the reflected light of Earth below and stars above. What does? She asked, handing him their signature drink, now famous across 3 galaxies as the quantum cappuccino. All of this, he gestured at the view. Below them, Earth glowed with the combined light of human cities and alien settlements. Ships of various designs, from sleek alien cruisers to retrofitted human vessels, moved through the atmosphere like schools of luminescent fish. 5 years ago, I was just a guy running a coffee shop. Now I'm co-founder of an intergalactic business empire. Lyra's scales shifted to a nostalgic blue, and I was a princess trying to escape my own empire. Now she paused, searching for the right words. Still making coffee, Mike supplied with a grin. Still making connections, she corrected, though her scales flickered with amusement. Speaking of which, we should head to the ceremony. They're waiting for us. The main observation deck of the space elevator had been transformed into a grand hall for the evening. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered for what the media was calling the most significant event in human history, the official founding of the Intergalactic Innovation Exchange. As Mike and Lyra entered, they passed displays showcasing the achievements of the past 5 years. Holographic projections showed the evolution of human-alien hybrid technology, quantum-enhanced smartphones, gravity-defying transportation systems, and of course, the ever-popular self-cleaning coffee machines that had made Starbridge famous across the cosmos. But it wasn't just technology on display. Art installations created by human-alien collaborations filled the spaces between formal exhibits. Music that combined Earth instruments with alien harmonics played softly in the background. In one corner, a human chef and a gaseous being from the Carina Nebula were preparing dishes that could be enjoyed by multiple species. Vex, now the head of Starbridge's diplomatic relations, and still making the best lats in 3 galaxies, approached them with a group of new alien delegates. "And here are the ones who started it all," he announced proudly. "The princess who became a barista, and the human who taught the galaxy that innovation doesn't always mean advancement." One of the delegates, a being composed entirely of shifting geometric patterns, spoke through a translator. "Is it true that your first collaboration involved repairing a primitive food heating device?" "The microwave." Mike laughed. "Yeah, though I'm still not sure using quantum stabilizers to heat leftovers was strictly necessary." "But that's exactly what makes Earth special," Lyra interjected, her scales pulsing with passionate colors. "Humans don't just adopt new technology, they adapt it, combine it with existing solutions, find uses no one else imagined. They taught us that sometimes the simplest solution is the best one." The ceremony itself was brief, unusual for galactic political events, but that was another human influence. The Intergalactic Innovation Exchange was officially established, with Earth as its headquarters. Its mission, to promote collaboration between species, emphasizing that progress wasn't just about technological advancement, but about finding creative solutions to universal challenges. After the formal proceedings, the gathering naturally migrated to the space elevator's Starbridge Cafe. Mike watched as beings from across the cosmos shared drinks and stories, each cup of coffee or exotic beverage becoming a bridge between worlds. Near the window, a young human girl was teaching a group of alien children how to make paper airplanes, while their parents discussed modifications to make them fly in different atmospheric conditions. At the counter, a quantum physicist and a barista debated the best way to achieve the perfect creme using principles from string theory. "You know what's funny?" Mike said to Lyra as they watched the scene. "When you first crashed in my yard and offered to be my servant, I thought it was the strangest thing that would ever happen to me." Lyra's scales shimmered with mirth. "And now I'm running an intergalactic coffee shop chain with my best friend, who happens to be an alien princess turned revolutionary leader. Strange doesn't even begin to cover it." The conversation was interrupted by an alert from the cafe's quantum communications system. The first human-alien colony ship was ready to launch, carrying families who had chosen to make new homes among the stars. The ship's name was visible on the holographic display, RSS Starbridge Pioneer. "They named it after us," Lyra said softly, her scales glowing with emotion. "After what we started," Mike corrected, "but they're going to build something new out there, something we never imagined." As they watched the colony ship begin its journey, Mike reflected on how far they'd come. The universe had turned out to be full of advanced civilizations, but it took a primitive world to show them that advancement wasn't everything. Sometimes you needed to step back, slow down, and maybe share a cup of coffee with someone different from yourself. The space elevator's observation deck offered a perfect view as the colony ship engaged its hybrid drive. Human ingenuity combined with alien technology, creating something greater than either could achieve alone. Stars that once seemed impossibly distant were now destinations, not just dreams. "So," Mike said, raising his cup in a toast to the next 5 years. Laura's scales created a dazzling light show as she clinked her cup against his. "To wherever the journey takes us." Below them, Earth continued its eternal dance around the sun, but it was no longer alone in its cosmic ballet. Ships of all designs moved through the space lanes, carrying beings of all species too, and from the planet that had taught the galaxy a simple but powerful truth. Sometimes the biggest revolutions start with the smallest acts of kindness, like offering shelter to a stranger or sharing a simple cup of coffee. And somewhere out there, on countless worlds across the cosmos, beings of all kinds were learning what Mike and Lyra had discovered in a small coffee shop on Earth, that the greatest adventures often begin when we're brave enough to see past our differences and help each other find our way home among the stars.